The following narratives are urban horror stories set in the ancient cities of Brazil, enveloping readers in the rich and eerie histories of these locales. These tales weave together elements of folklore, curses, and spectral hauntings, drawing from the deep cultural and historical roots of their settings to create chilling and engaging experiences. On a moonlit night in Ouro Preto, Minas Gerais, the city with its cobblestone streets and colonial houses hid dark secrets in its narrow alleys. Beatriz, a young 28-year-old historian, had recently moved into one of these old houses, drawn by the charm and history of the place. Little did she know the mysteries she was about to uncover. Beatriz was organizing an exhibition about the colonial period and spent hours in the library researching old documents. Since childhood, she had been fascinated by urban legends and old stories, especially those related to colonial Brazil. Her grandfather, a storyteller, had planted this seed in her heart with tales of hidden treasures and lost souls. One night, while flipping through an old book of parish records, she found an intriguing letter dated 1823, written by a woman named Catarina. The letter mentioned a cursed treasure hidden in one of the abandoned mines in the region. Beatriz could not contain her excitement. Had she found a real clue about a legend her grandfather had told her? Intrigued, Beatriz decided to investigate more about Catarina. After a few weeks of research, she discovered that Catarina was one of the last descendants of a wealthy family that had mysteriously disappeared. The letter hinted that Catarina's family possessed a great fortune, but anyone who tried to find it would be haunted by a vengeful spirit. Determined to uncover the truth, Beatriz began to seek more information about Catarina and her family. She found old diaries, letters, and accounts painted a tragic picture of betrayal and loss. Catarina had been unjustly accused of witchcraft by her own brother, who wanted to seize the family's fortune. Skeptical about curses, Beatriz decided to explore the mine mentioned in the letter. She knew she needed help, so she contacted Pedro, a local guide and childhood friend who knew the region and its stories well. Pedro, initially reluctant, agreed to accompany her after hearing her exciting discovery. On a cold Saturday morning, Beatriz and Pedro set out for the mountains. The mine was in a hard-to-reach area, surrounded by a dense forest and practically forgotten by the locals. The journey was long and exhausting. Beatriz's determination kept her firm. When they reached the entrance of the mine, Pedro hesitated. "Beatriz, they say this mine is haunted. Many who tried to explore it were never seen again," he warned, looking worried. Beatriz, however, was determined to continue. "Pedro, I appreciate the concern, but I need to know the truth. If you want, you can wait here," she said firmly. Pedro, although reluctant, decided to accompany her. The mine's entrance was dark and damp, spiderwebs covering the walls. Beatriz's lantern barely illuminated the path ahead. Each step echoed through the tunnels, creating a sinister atmosphere. After a few minutes of walking, they found a large chamber with a strange inscription in Latin engraved on the wall. As Beatriz tried to decipher the inscription, cold wind blew through the tunnel, extinguishing Pedro's lantern. "This is a bad sign," he murmured, trying to relight the lantern. Beatriz, focused on the inscription, finally translated it. "He who seeks the fortune will find disgrace." Suddenly, a scream echoed through the mine, coming from the depth. Pedro, terrified, grabbed Beatriz's arm. "We need to get out of here now," he exclaimed. Beatriz, determined to move forward, replied, "Pedro, something is calling us. We need to find out what it is." Having no choice, Pedro followed Beatriz deeper into the mine. As they advanced, the screams grew louder, more distressing. The walls seemed to close in around them, and the air grew heavier. Suddenly, they found a massive wooden door, partially hidden behind rocks and debris. Beatriz forced the door open, revealing a room filled with human bones and ancient objects. In the center of the room, a large wooden chest was ajar, revealing shiny gold coins. Before they could approach, the room's temperature dropped drastically, and a spectral figure appeared before them. "You shouldn't be here." The cold, echoing voice. Beatriz, trying to stay calm, asked, "Who are you? What happened here?" The figure revealed itself to be the spirit of Catarina, who guarded her family's cursed treasure. "Those who seek this wealth are doomed to suffer forever," warned the spirit. As Katerina spoke, the lights began to flicker and the screams intensified. Beatriz and Pedro felt an invisible force trying to push them away from the chest. "We need to get out of here," shouted Pedro, pulling Beatriz towards the exit. But before they could escape, the door slammed shut, trapping them in the dark room. Katerina's spirit approached, presence making the air almost impossible to breathe. "Now, you are part of the curse," she said, before disappearing into a cold mist. The walls began to shake, and stones started falling from the ceiling. Desperate, Beatriz tried to open the door, but it was locked. Pedro, in a last act of courage, used a pickaxe to force the door open. They managed to escape just in time, running through the tunnels as the mine collapsed behind them. As they emerged into daylight, panting and covered in dust, Beatriz vowed never to return to that mine. However, Katerina's spirit continued to haunt her dreams, whispering dark secrets and warnings. Beatriz knew that the curse was not over, and that somehow she was still connected to the cursed treasure. Determined to break the curse and free Katerina, Beatriz began studying old legends and ritual, seeking a way to finally bring peace to the tormented spirit. Following days were unsettling for Beatriz. Each night was plagued by nightmares, where Katerina whispered secrets about the curse and revealed fragments of her tragic life. Beatriz would wake up in a cold sweat, feeling like something or someone was watching her in the darkness of her room. Determined to understand and resolve the situation, Beatriz began exploring old legends and protection rituals in rare books and forgotten manuscripts. She spent hours in the library, absorbing every detail that could help her free Katerina and herself from the curse. With each new discovery, her intrigue grew, but so did the sense of imminent danger. Pedro, concerned about his friend, decided to visit her one Sunday afternoon. "Beatriz, you need to rest. You're exhausting yourself with these researches. We need to find another way to deal with this," he said, noticing the deep dark circles under the young historian's eyes. "Pedro, I can't rest while Katerina is trapped in this curse. I saw the pain in her eyes. We need to help her," replied Beatriz, her voice firm but exhausted. Pedro sighed, resigned. "So, what can we do? How can we free Katerina and rid ourselves of this curse?" Beatriz picked up an old manuscript she had recently found. According to this text, there is a purification ritual that can break ancient curses. We need specific items and must perform the ritual on the night of the full moon, which is in 3 days. Pedro looked at the manuscript with skepticism. "And where will we find these items? Some seem impossible to get." Beatriz smiled, a tired but determined smile. "I've already started looking. We'll need your help to get the rest." The two spent the following days searching for the necessary items: pure wax candles, water from a sacred spring, specific herbs, and an ancient silver relic. With each item found, Beatriz felt hope rekindle, but also a growing sense of urgency, as if time was running out. On the night of the full moon, Beatriz and Pedro met at the mine's entrance. The air was heavy, and the night pitch dark. However, the full moon shone intensely, casting a pale, ghostly light over the terrain. "Is everything ready?" asked Pedro, carrying the bag with the ritual items. "Yes, it's all here," replied Beatriz, holding a lantern. "Let's go. We need to do this before midnight." They entered the mine cautiously, Beatriz's lantern illuminating the path ahead. The silence was almost absolute, except for their steps echoing through the tunnels. When they reached the chamber where they had found the treasure, Beatriz began preparing the ritual. She placed the candles in a circle around the chest, filled a basin with the sacred water, and scattered the herbs on the ground. "Pedro, hold the silver relic. When I start reciting the incantation, you must place it in the chest," instructed Beatriz, her voice firm. Pedro nodded, holding the relic carefully. Beatriz began reciting the incantation in Latin, her words echoing through the chamber. The room's temperature dropped drastically, and a cold wind began blowing, extinguishing the candles one by one. Suddenly, Katerina's spirit appeared again, presence making the air almost impossible to breathe. "You shouldn't be here," she said with a cold, echoing voice. "We came to help you, Katerina. We want to free you from this curse," replied Beatriz, without interrupting the incantation. Katerina hesitated, her expression softening for a moment. "Do you really believe you can free me?" she asked, the tone of incredulity and hope. "Yes, I believe," said Beatriz, continuing the ritual. Pedro, now. Pedro placed the relic in the chest, and a bright light began to emanate from it, illuminating the entire chamber. Katerina's spirit was enveloped by this light, and a scream of anguish echoed through the tunnel, followed by a deep silence. The chest closed with a bang, and the light disappeared, leaving the chamber in dim light. "Beatriz, did it work?" asked Pedro, panting. Beatriz looked around, still processing what had happened. "I think so. Katerina's spirit is gone. I think we did it," she said, feeling a wave of relief and exhaustion. As they left the mine, Beatriz felt that the curse had been broken, but also knew that the marks of the experience would remain forever. However, something still troubled her mind. Had they really freed Katerina, or just started something even darker? The nightmares didn't stop. Beatriz continued to see Katerina in her dreams, still asking for help. The nights were long and restless, and she frequently woke up with the feeling that something dark still hovered over her. One morning, while reviewing Katerina's letter again, Beatriz found a note she had missed before. It was a detailed description of a medallion that Katerina always wore. The letter said the medallion was the key to her liberation. Determined to find the medallion, Beatriz decided to visit the house where Katerina had lived. She knew the house was in ruins, but believed the medallion might be hidden there. Pedro insisted on accompanying her again, despite the dangers. Katerina's house, located on the outskirts of Ouro Preto, was overrun with weeds and vines. The interior was dark, with old furniture covered in dust and cobwebs. Beatriz and Pedro began searching each room for clues. "Beatriz, come see this," called Pedro from an upstairs bedroom. He had found an old chest, locked with a rusty padlock. With some effort, they managed to open the chest and inside found several old jewels, and, among them, a silver medallion with a Latin inscription. "This must be the medallion mentioned in the letter," said Beatriz, holding it carefully. "We need to take this to Dona Amelia. She can tell us how to use the medallion to free Katerina." Back at Dona Amelia's house, Beatriz and Pedro showed the medallion to the professor. "You found the key," said Dona Amelia, examining the object. "This medallion is very powerful. We need to use it in the final ritual to free Katerina's soul." Dona Amelia explained that the ritual had to be performed at the place where Katerina had been unjustly condemned and executed, the old town square. The square was a place of great suffering for Katerina. "We need to perform the ritual there on the next full moon." The days leading up to the full moon were filled with preparations. Beatriz and Pedro gathered all the necessary items and mentally prepared for what was to come. They knew it would be a decisive night and that they could not fail. On the night of the full moon, Beatriz, Pedro, and Dona Amelia went to the old square in Ouro Preto. The place, now quiet, hid the dark memories of past executions. They set up a small altar in the center of the square and lit candles around it. Dona Amelia began reciting the ancient incantations, while Beatriz held the medallion, ready to use it at the right moment. Pedro was on alert for any sign of danger, knowing that any interruption could be fatal to the ritual. As Dona Amelia recited the verses, a cold breeze began to blow through the square. Candles flickered, and Katerina's spectral figure appeared again, this time with an expression of sadness and hope. "You really came," she said, her voice echoing through the space. "We came to free you, Katerina," replied Beatriz with determination. "We will bring justice to your name." Dona Amelia instructed Beatriz to hold the medallion above the altar and recite the final incantation. As Beatriz followed the instructions, a bright light emanated from the medallion, illuminating the entire square. Katerina's spirit was enveloped by this light, and a scream of relief echoed through the space. Suddenly, the light went out, and Katerina's spirit disappeared, finally at peace. Beatriz fell to her knees, exhausted but relieved. "We did it," she said, panting. "Katerina is free." With Katerina's liberation, the sense of unease that had been haunting Beatriz began to disappear. The nights became peaceful again, and the nightmares ceased. Beatriz felt an inner peace she had not experienced in a long time. The news of Katerina's liberation spread through Ouro Preto, and the town began to honor her memory. A small memorial was erected in the square, and Beatriz organized an exhibition to tell Katerina's story and the injustice she suffered. The exhibition was a success, attracting visitors from all over. Beatriz and Pedro returned to their normal lives, but they would never forget the adventure they had lived. They remained close friends, always ready to help each other in any circumstance. A few months later, while walking through the city, Beatriz felt a gentle and familiar breeze. "Katerina?" she whispered, looking around. A feeling of peace enveloped her, as if Katerina was there, thanking her once again. Beatriz smiled, knowing that despite the challenges and dangers, she had helped bring justice and peace to a tormented soul. The experience had transformed her, making her stronger and more determined to continue unraveling the mysteries of the past. One day, while organizing her books, Beatriz found an old letter she had not noticed before. The letter was from Katerina, addressed to someone named João, and spoke of another part of the treasure hidden in a secret base. "Pedro, I think our adventure is not over yet," said Beatriz, showing the letter to her friend. "Seems there is another mystery to be unraveled." Pedro, always ready for new adventures, smiled. "Then let's find out what else Katerina wanted to show us." Beatriz and Pedro began investigating the new clue. Katerina's letter mentioned an old convent in the mountains, where she had hidden part of the treasure before her execution. They decided to visit the place to look for more information. Convent, now abandoned, was in a state of decay, but still retained its aura of mystery. As they explored the dark and silent corridors, they found a small chapel hidden behind a false wall. Inside the chapel was an altar with an inscription in Latin that read, "Here lies truth and justice." Beatriz and Pedro began searching around the altar and found a stone box hidden under the floor. Upon opening the box, they found an old map and a silver key. "This map must lead us to where the other part of the treasure is hidden," said Beatriz, excited. Following the map, Beatriz and Pedro reached an isolated cave in the mountains. The entrance was hidden by dense vegetation, but the silver key they found in the convent opened the stone door that blocked the way. Inside the cave, they found a labyrinth of tunnels leading to a well-lit room by ancient torches. In the center of the room was a pedestal with a golden urn, surrounded by protective symbols. Beatriz cautiously approached the urn and opened it. Inside, they found documents proving Katerina's innocence and revealing her brother's betrayal. There were also several jewels and gold coins, part of Katerina's family's lost treasure. "This is incredible, Beatriz," said Pedro, admiring. "Not only did we find the treasure, but also the evidence that can clear Katerina's name once and for all." Beatriz and Pedro returned to Ouro Preto with the documents and the treasure. They handed over the evidence to local authorities, who reopened Katerina's case and finally cleared her name officially. The story of her innocence and her brother's betrayal was widely publicized, bringing justice and peace to Katerina's spirit. With the treasure found, Beatriz funded the restoration of Katerina's old mansion, turning it into a museum dedicated to her life and the legends of Ouro Preto. Pedro, now an official museum guide, helped tell Katerina's fascinating story to visitors from around the world. Beatriz felt fulfilled, knowing she had helped bring justice and peace to Katerina. She continued her research and explorations, always looking for new stories and mysteries to unravel. Beatriz and Pedro's adventure became a legend in Ouro Preto, remembered for generations as an example of courage, friendship, and the relentless pursuit of truth and justice. And so, Katerina's legacy and Beatriz's determination remain alive in the memory of all who know their story. Beatriz and Pedro had barely rested from their last adventure when a new discovery shook their lives. During an exhibition about ancient indigenous civilizations at the Ouro Preto Museum, Beatriz found an intriguing piece, an amulet in the shape of a star, known as the Morning Star. The amulet was shrouded in legends of a powerful curse that promised both power and destruction. Beatriz was fascinated by the amulet, which was made of golden metal with embedded precious stones. According to legend, Morning Star was created by a powerful shaman to protect his tribe from invaders, but ended up bringing misfortune to all who tried to use it for personal gain. Many believed the amulet was lost forever until it was found in a recent excavation in the Amazon. After the exhibition, Beatriz spent sleepless nights researching the Morning Star. With each new piece of information, her fascination and concern grew. She discovered that several previous expeditions that tried to investigate the amulet ended in tragedy. Stories of mysterious disappearances, sudden deaths, and inexplicable misfortunes surrounded the amulet. One night, Beatriz was alone in her office, immersed in books and documents, when she heard a strange sound. It was like a whisper, a distant voice calling her name. She turned quickly, saw nothing. Trying to ignore the shiver that ran down her spine, she continued reading. It was then that she found a mention of an unknown tribe that supposedly still held secrets about the amulet. Determined to uncover the truth, Beatriz sought out Pedro. "Pedro, I need your help again," she said, showing her findings. "The morning star is more dangerous than I imagined. There's a tribe that may know how to neutralize the curse. We need to go to the Amazon." Pedro looked at the documents and then at Beatriz. "You never give up, do you? If this tribe can really help, we need to find them, but we need to be well prepared this time. Amazon is dangerous, especially if we're chasing something cursed." The preparations for the expedition were exhaustive. Beatriz and Pedro spent weeks organizing supplies, hiring local guides, studying maps of the dense Amazon rainforest. They knew the journey would be long and full of dangers, but Beatriz's determination to uncover the truth about the morning star was unshakable. Finally, they boarded a flight to Manaus, where they met Eduardo, an experienced local guide. "I've heard about this star," said Eduardo, as they walked through the bustling city. "Many consider it a legend, but there are those who fervently believe in its curse." From Manaus, they traveled by boat upriver to a small village, where they received final instructions before venturing into the jungle. The locals looked at the outsiders with distrust, especially when they learned of the purpose of their visit. "You are playing with forces you do not understand," warned an elder from the village. "The forest is alive and has its own guardians. Morning Star has brought only suffering to those who touched it." Despite the warnings, Beatriz and Pedro set out at dawn the next day. The journey through the jungle was arduous, with dense vegetation and suffocating heat making each step a challenge. Insects buzzed incessantly, and the sounds of the forest, sometimes calm, sometimes threatening, kept them on alert. As they advanced, Eduardo guided them safely, but even he seemed uneasy. "We are entering unknown territory. Stay close and be alert for anything unusual," he said, wielding a machete to clear a path through the vegetation. After days of exhausting walking, they finally spotted signs of civilization. A series of carved wooden totems marked the entrance to the tribe's territory. "We are close," said Eduardo, with a sigh of relief. As they approached the village, they were greeted by tribe members who watched them with curiosity and caution. One of the elders, a man with a severe appearance and piercing eyes, introduced himself as Tupan. "You come from afar, seeking what you should not," he said in fluent Portuguese but with a strong accent. Beatriz explained their intentions, showing respect and humility. "We are not here out of greed or reckless curiosity. We want to understand the morning star and perhaps find a way to neutralize its curse." Tupan observed Beatriz for a moment before speaking. "The morning star was created to protect but became a source of pain. Many tried to use it for their own purposes and paid the price. If you truly wish to understand its power, you must prove your worth and purity of intentions." The tribe members led Beatriz, Pedro, and Eduardo to a hut, where they were offered food and water. "Tomorrow, the tests will begin," said Tupan. "If you pass, I will tell you everything I know about the morning star." The next day, the tests began. First challenge involved crossing a swift river infested with piranhas. Beatriz and Pedro had to work together to build an improvised raft and navigate safely to the other side. "Remember, strength lies in unity," Tupan, watching them closely. With effort and cooperation, they managed to cross the river, earning the tribe's initial respect. The next test involved a walk through the swamp, where they had to find specific medicinal plants while avoiding natural traps and dangerous animals. Eduardo's knowledge of the local flora was essential to their success. The final test was the most challenging. Tupan led the group to a sacred cave, where they had to spend the night alone, facing their fears and proving their courage. "The cave reveals what is deepest in your heart. If you pass this trial, you will be ready to know the truth about the morning star," said Tupan before leaving them. Inside the cave, the darkness was total, and the sounds amplified by the echoes created a terrifying atmosphere. Beatriz and Pedro lit a small fire to warm up and illuminate the place. "Pedro, do you think we are ready for this? What if the curse is real?" asked Beatriz, her voice trembling with uncertainty. "I don't know, Beatriz, but I know we can't turn back now. We've faced so many challenges together, we can't give up," replied Pedro, trying to stay calm. "We'll get through this." As the night progressed, Beatriz and Pedro were confronted by disturbing visions. Beatriz saw scenes of her grandfather retelling stories of treasures and curses, mixed with visions of Caterina and the cursed mine. Pedro saw his family, who always supported him, mixed with scenes from his childhood and the fear of losing those he loved. Suddenly, the fire went out, plunging them into total darkness. "Pedro, where are you?" cried Beatriz, trying to find her friend in the dark. She felt a hand touch her shoulder and turned quickly, only to find Pedro also scared. "We need to stay together," he said. "We'll leave this cave when daylight comes." As they waited for dawn, the visions continued, but they stayed firm, holding each other's hands, facing their fears together. When daylight finally entered the cave, Tupan appeared at the entrance. "You passed the trial? You are ready to know the truth about the Morning Star," he said, with a rare smile. Back at the village, Tupan led Beatriz and Pedro to an ancient temple where the secrets of the Morning Star were kept. This amulet was created by our tribe's most powerful shaman, but was corrupted by human desire for power. To neutralize its curse, purification ritual must be performed during the lunar eclipse, which will occur soon, explained Tupan. Beatriz and Pedro listened attentively as Tupan described the preparations needed for the ritual. They had to collect rare ingredients from the forest and prepare a special mixture to be used during the ritual. "You proved to be worthy. Now you must prepare for the ritual and face the final challenge," said Tupan. In the following days, Beatriz and Pedro, with Eduardo's help, collected the necessary ingredients: roots of rare plants, crystals found in hidden caves, and water from a sacred spring. Each ingredient had a special meaning and was essential for purifying the amulet. As they prepared for the ritual, Beatriz began to feel the influence of the Morning Star. She had intense visions and dreams, where the ancient shaman's voice revealed secrets about the amulet and its true intention. "You must be strong, Beatriz. The curse can be broken. The sacrifice is great," said the voice. On the night of the lunar eclipse, Beatriz, Pedro, Eduardo, and Tupan gathered at the ancient temple. The atmosphere was charged with tension and expectation. The moon began to disappear, and the sky was tinged with a deep red, announcing the start of the eclipse. Tupan lit a large bonfire in the center of the temple and began reciting ancient incantation. Beatriz and Pedro, holding the Morning Star and the prepared mixture, followed Tupan's instructions, pouring the mixture over the amulet and holding it over the fire. Suddenly, an invisible force began pulling Beatriz towards the fire. "Pedro, help me," she cried, feeling the curse's power resisting. Pedro held Beatriz with all his strength, trying to prevent her from being pulled into the flames. The ancient shaman's voice echoed through the temple, instructing Beatriz on what to do. "Sacrifice yourself for purification. But remember, true power lies in unity and mutual sacrifice." Beatriz understood what she needed to do. "Pedro, we need to do this together. Only then will the curse be broken." With renewed courage, Beatriz and Pedro held the Morning Star together and plunged it into the fire. The amulet began to shine intensely, emanating a blinding light. The invisible force pulling Beatriz weakened. The struggle was far from over. As the amulet shone, a spectral figure emerged from the flames. It was the spirit of the ancient shaman with an expression of pain and regret. "You proved to be worthy. The curse will be broken, but the sacrifice is inevitable," he said with an echoing voice. Beatriz and Pedro felt intense pain, as if their souls were being tested to the limit. "We can't give up now," murmured Beatriz, holding Pedro's hand firmly. "We need to be strong together." With a final effort, Beatriz and Pedro pushed the Morning Star deeper into the flames. The amulet exploded in a shower of light and energy, enveloping the entire temple. The shaman's spirit disappeared, and the curse was finally broken. When the light dissipated, Beatriz and Pedro fell to the ground, exhausted but relieved. "We did it, Beatriz. The curse is broken. said Pedro with a weak voice. Tupan and Eduardo helped them up, offering words of gratitude and respect. Your bravery and determination brought peace not only to our tribe but to all those affected by the morning star, said Tupan with a sincere smile. You will always be remembered as heroes. In the days that followed, Beatriz and Pedro were treated as tribe members, receiving care and recovery. When they finally said goodbye, Tupan gave them a special gift, a small wooden totem representing courage and unity. Back in Ouro Preto, Beatriz and Pedro returned to their normal lives, but the Amazon experience deeply marked them. Beatriz wrote an extensive article about the morning star and the adventure they lived, which was published in various academic journals and generated great interest. Beatriz and Pedro's story became a modern legend, inspiring many to explore, discover, and protect the relics and legends of the past. They continued their research and adventures, always together, knowing that the strength of unity and friendship was the greatest treasure they possessed. Over time, Beatriz and Pedro opened an institute dedicated to studying and preserving the legends and mysteries of Brazil, passing on their experiences and knowledge to future generations. And so, Beatriz and Pedro's courage and determination became an eternal legacy, remembered by all who heard their stories.